There are a fair few weapons in Dead Rails on Roblox, anything from a really cool pistol, to a literal cannon, to an actual pistol that shoots lightning from the sky. However, some of the guns in this game are just honestly super mid or just not worth even picking up. And in today's video, we're going to do a tier list of all of the guns in Dead Rails to find out which ones are goated, which ones are okay, and which ones should honestly just be taken straight to the trading post to sell. If you end up enjoying the video, definitely consider subscribing to see more videos just like this. And with that said, let's get right into the list. Mauser is the base pistol that you spawn with if you have the pistol game pass. It's a great starting weapon to save you a bit of damage in the early game. It gives you a pretty decently high fire rate and 2-shot headshot for weaker enemies early game. But its accuracy at range suffers quite a bit, ammo goes quick, and it's a decently rare find in the game. Though it is a pretty nice find if you don't have any other weapons, there's not really much else to say about it. If literally nothing else, it's a pretty good backup weapon if your primary needs to reload, plus ammo is cheap for pistols. I'm gonna have to go with a decent B tier. It's great, just not something that you'd want to main. The revolver is the first gun that most people are going to end up buying in Dead Rails, especially if they don't have the pistol game pass. It's in the gunsmith shop at every single safe area for just $35, and with that, some very cheap ammo. It's a cost-effective way to get some solid damage in without needing to put every single dollar towards having a gun. Sadly, what it has an ease of access to getting, it does have some low ammo capacity at just 6, and a fairly middle-of-the-road reload. Not to mention, not really a noticeable damage difference between this and the Luger. However, it does have a really fast and satisfying fire rates. Again, great early game option, and it can last you quite a while through the game, but honestly something that you'd probably want to replace with a different weapon whenever you get some more money. So I think it's low price and ease of access to land it. I think it's a pretty solid A tier. Stepping it up both in damage and rarity, the Navy Revolver. This is a weapon that you can find in a lot of different locations, but I find it a lot less than I do its other pistol counterparts. It has a really unique and distinct look to it, and frankly, it might be one of the best looking weapons in the entire game. It does have its downsides though. Much like the previous revolver, it has a slow reload, low ammo capacity, and even slower fire rates. But it comes with a decently sizable or at least noticeable damage bump. While not being able to one-tap head anything, it does make dealing damage to some larger enemies a little bit easier. Otherwise, it's honestly not a very great choice over the other options as far as the pistols go, despite its higher damage. And it's honestly just not really worth it. C tier at best. Now to conclude the pistols, the Electrocutioner. The Electrocutioner is the newest weapon and honestly probably my favorite weapon in Dead Rails because of the way that it's unlocked, actually being kind of similar to like an old Call of Duty Zombies Easter egg, making it just that much more cool whenever you do finally get it. It only comes with 20 rounds by default, and it one-shots most enemies with literal lightning shooting down whenever you click. The only real downside about this weapon is going to be that low ammo though. It can be reloaded or recharged, I guess, by using the lightning rods that you find in the Tesla labs, the same place that you get the Electrocutioner from, and honestly, it's just such a cool weapon. I think anything other than S tier for this would be an actual sin. Moving on to the shotguns, we have two different ones in this game, but we'll start with the base shotgun. It's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a video game shotgun. Super high damage, super short range, it can one-shot a lot of weaker enemies point blank, and it absolutely shreds some of the more difficult enemies like werewolves. There's not much to say about the shotgun overall, it just does a lot of damage, it has a decent price point to it, not super expensive, and it has a lot of potential through the entirety of any playthrough. Definitely S tier. Admittedly, I don't have a ton of playtime with the sawed-off, but what time I do have with it has been pretty positive. It's essentially the same thing as the shotgun, just with only 2 rounds before reloading, and I think that you have to be a little bit closer to be doing some higher damage. Just don't quote me on that. It does seem like you can also spam it faster if you spam R and left click at the same time, which I think is pretty cool. Honestly, it just shreds through hordes really quick, especially with that method, and it definitely does some sizable damage to even things like the werewolves. I've got to at least give it an A tier. Honestly, the rifle is one of the best weapons in the game. While expensive at the gunsmith, it's pretty easy to find in towns, and its ammo goes a long way with its insane damage. It one-taps zombies and bandits, and it's able to knock out werewolves from a pretty good distance relatively quick. It's also super accurate, letting you snipe bandits from afar. That way you don't have to risk getting absolutely shredded by them. It happens way too many times to me. It honestly just doesn't let you down, and you could do the same thing with that you can with the shotgun, where you could have multiple. So if one's empty, you could just switch to the other and then reload and just keep swapping back and forth for an endless stream of fire. Again, an actual S tier weapon that can easily carry you to the end of the game. Easy A tier. The same, however, cannot be overall said about the bolt action rifle. Now, it does share seemingly almost every stat with the aforementioned lever action rifle, or just the rifle, but objectively for the worse. It's more rare, you can't buy it, it has one less bullet before you need to reload, and otherwise, it's the same as the regular rifle, meaning that you're getting the same performance, but worse in some of the more critical ways like ammo capacity and rarity. I don't notice a real difference in damage or anything else either, so it's not like it makes up for that in any aspect. It is a great weapon, much like the rifle, but the rifle is literally better in almost every single way than the bolt action. And for that, I'm gonna have to go with C tier. It's really only worth it if you literally do not have a rifle and you just need one. That's the only scenario, otherwise just sell it. Well, that relatively makes up for all of the normal guns. Now we're going to be talking about some of the weird stuff. There are a few mountable weapons in Dead Rails, one of which being the Maxim gun, and I have a few words that I want to say about this weapon. First, it's pretty good. It doesn't do a ton of damage. In fact, it does relatively low damage, but you never have to reload it so long as you have boxes of ammo near it. However, it's fairly common to find on its own, so you don't really have to buy it. And as stated before, it has to be mounted, or technically it has to be welded for you to mount it. And of course, you can only weld it to your train. This does have its ups and downs. It's great because you can have a friend using it while you're driving or as you're pulling into a town or something. But the downside is it really has almost no practical use in solo. Since you're really vulnerable whenever you're using it, you also can't drive while using it, obviously, so you have to sit still. It just doesn't even really make sense to buy whenever you're playing solo unless you found it and you just want to have it welded down just in case. Or even as extra armor for that matter. For solo gameplay, it's a C tier at best, but with multiplayer gameplay, I'd say it's an easy A tier, so I'll compromise somewhere in the middle and say that it's a pretty good B tier just overall. Cannon is yet another one of these weld use only weapons that is super rare, only being able to be found inside of the military base bunker after killing the captain and using his key to unlock the door. It only has a dozen cannonballs in it, so the use of it is super limited, but it does a ton of damage whenever you're able to land hits, assuming that you can learn how to compensate for its horrendous drop off. And overall, it's just fun. Dude, it's a cannon. Look at it. It's super rare. It's fun to get. It does good damage. And again, I'm gonna have to go with another B tier on this. Moving on to throwable weapons now, we have the Molotov. The Molotov is a weapon that I can imagine gets overlooked a lot. It doesn't really do a super crazy amount of damage against single targets, but that's because it's more meant for crowd control type situations. Like if you're rounding up the zombies in a town, but they are seemingly kind of rare. They're pretty expensive for what you're getting for them. And the only time that they're even remotely useful, I would say, is whenever you're playing the Arsonist class, which doubles your fire damage. But that in itself is such a niche scenario, so honestly, they're not really worth trying to use other than maybe crowd control. C tier in my book. Molotovs are not the only throwables in this game, though. We also have a combo of the Crucifix and the Holy Water. This one is actually a pretty cool combo. It does essentially the same thing as the Molotov, where you can throw the Holy Water, but it seems like you have to throw the Crucifix down first, adding an extra step. You're also having to sacrifice a lot of money since both of these together sell for over $100, though it does have a bit of a cool factor to it because not only does it do this green fire damage, but also it shoots lightning down, which makes up for the extra step in my book. I want to go C tier, but the lightning is just too cool. I've got to go with B tier. Dynamite, while it isn't so much as a throwable as it is a wait for it type weapon. Basically, you can light a piece of dynamite by dropping the dynamite wherever you want it and holding a torch up to the fuse, and after a few seconds it makes a massive explosion, which can also damage you, by the way, so be careful being near it, but it does kill seemingly anything near it. I don't exactly know how much damage it does, but it's a lot. Otherwise, it's pretty cool, big damage, but a long and even kind of an expensive setup for each time, not to mention the fact that the items can be rare to find and rare to even be in the general store whenever you stop at a safe area. But I can't really give it anything less than a B tier for the damage alone. We also have some melees on the list, and I won't go over every single melee in the game because a lot of them are super similar and we don't have time for that today. But I will talk about the two main melees that are really important in this game. First of all, the stock shovel. It's fine. It gets the job done. You get 5-shot zombies with it, but the swing speed is pretty slow and it doesn't really do anything other than just be a bare bones shovel. And for that, I think that I'll have to go with my first D tier on the list. There is actually one melee weapon though that has a pretty solid use, the vampire knife. Technically, two solid uses. Now, usually my main use for this is literally just to sell it because you go through all the trouble of beating the castle to get it, and it gets you like $100 extra. But if you're the type to be super conservative with your ammo, only using it whenever you absolutely have to, it still does 5-shot the zombies, but it also has a pretty decent feature to it. That is, it literally heals you whenever you hit enemies. So that way it's not super annoying to one-on-one zombies since you basically will make your health back just by killing it. But on regular zombies, whenever clearing some random houses, yeah, I'd say it's useful for that. Though personally, I would just say literally any other gun would be better. Ammo is not that rare or expensive. Just sell the knife, buy a gun, buy some ammo if you already got a gun. I really wanted to give it lower, but I gotta give it A tier for the uniqueness and the challenge of getting it. I also have two honorable mentions that I want to include here. First of which being barbed wire. It seems like a bit of a weird choice because it's not really a weapon that you can equip, nor is it a weapon that you can mount. It is an idle item that you can buy, and it does damage to anything that steps through it on your train. This to me is probably the most underrated item in the entire game because if you get enough of them on your train, it literally stops basically everything. I have yet to have an enemy that it can't stop. Weirdly enough, if you have enough barbed wire around your train where it's just like completely covered, werewolves don't seem to want to attack me anymore. But hey, it saves me the trouble, especially at night if I'm driving or if I have to stop for whatever reason. So it's actually completely busted. Definitely S tier 100% of the way. And for our last weapon as an honorable mention, the sentry guns that are in the safe areas. They keep you safe, they let almost nothing get to you, and it lets you AFK through the nights to collect like the bodies and such for money in the mornings. The true unsung heroes of Dead Rails, if you ask me. 100% S tier all the way. That's going to be it for the tier list. I really hope that I didn't miss any weapons other than the random melees that I said I wouldn't go over. There are otherwise not a crazy amount of weapons in this game, and I'm going to feel really stupid if I somehow missed one. However, let me know your thoughts below. Do you agree with my list? Do you think I'm completely insane for every single choice that I made? Let me know in the comment section below. And while you're down there, definitely consider subscribing and liking the video. It's literally free and it helps out the channel a ton, and you'll get to keep up to date with all of the latest and greatest Dead Rails content. Thanks for watching, dudes. Big shout out to the channel members up on screen. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching, dudes. Peace.